She never does keep enough beer in this house.
How can I? It would take a team of Clydesdales to keep up with your guzzling.
I only drink because you make my life a living hell.
Oh, yeah? You think it's a picnic living with a boozed-up Mammy Yokum?
They were America's loudest, funniest, most dysfunctional TV family. Behind the laughs, devastation. One cast member died alone on New Year's Eve at age 99. Another buried his own children and never let America see his tears. A third walked away from this show too early and missed a fortune in checks. And one quiet face on Mama's couch, he'd later become one of the most famous androids in science fiction history. Stay with me. This one gets dark. Dorothy Lyman, Naomi Oates Harper. Let's start with a woman who wasn't even supposed to be the star of this show, but somehow became its beating heart. Dorothy Lyman was born April 18, 1947 in Minneapolis. By the time Mama's Family came calling in 1983, she was already a two-time Daytime Emmy winner from her run on All My Children. Sharp, funny, underrated.
1983, and every Emmy Award for Outstanding Performance goes to ABC. Best Actress, Dorothy Lyman on All My Children.
Hollywood didn't quite know what to do with her. Then came Naomi. Big hair, tight jeans, lipstick that could stop traffic on Highway 31. Dorothy didn't play Naomi, she inhabited her.
You know, I think it was the one where Vinton had the impotency problem.
And here's the thing. When NBC canceled the show in 1984 and most of the original cast walked, Dorothy stayed. She came back for the syndicated revival in 1986 and held that house together for 4 more seasons.
Miss Harper, it's me, Naomi. Well, good Lord, there goes my appetite.
She and Vicki Lawrence became real-life best friends, the kind of friendship that survives Hollywood, which is almost no friendship at all. After Mama's Family wrapped, Dorothy stepped behind the camera. She directed television. She ran theater productions. Her marriage to director John Tillinger eventually ended the way a lot of Hollywood marriages do.
Everybody thought I was the dumb blonde on the show, but...
Quietly, painfully, in the back pages of the trades. She's 78 in 2026, still here, still working. They told her she was too loud for television. She turned the volume up anyway. Eric Brown, Buzz Harper Jr. Speaking of people who walked away, let's talk about the Harper kids.
Hi, Dad. Bye, Dad.
No, wait a minute, Buzz, wait a minute.
Eric Brown was born December 21st, 1960 in Los Angeles. He'd been working since he was a kid. TV movies, after-school specials, the kind of jobs that put a young actor on every casting director's shortlist.
Let's just be friends, okay?
You're playing with fire, Jay.
When Mama's Family hired him to play Buzz, the teenage son trapped inside Vint Harper's chaos, he was 22 years old and absolutely on his way.
Ever since your mother and I got a divorce, I've been,
Needing the company of a woman?
Then the show ended, and Eric Brown just stopped. No big scandal, no tabloid implosion, no tearful interview years later about what really happened. Just a quiet exit out of Hollywood through a side door nobody noticed. He's alive in 2026, 65 years old, living a private life he has every right to keep private. But to fans of this show, Buzz Harper basically vanished, and he never explained why. Karen Argude, Sonia Harper. His on-screen sister did almost the exact same thing. Karen Argude was born November 8, 1960 in Los Angeles.
Michael, you want to wait out in the car for a minute?
I don't know.
You do.
Just 6 weeks before Eric Brown, in the same city, on her way to the same television family. She'd been working teen sitcoms when Mama's Family cast her as Sonia, the sweet daughter trying to grow up in a house where nobody else ever shut up. She filmed her episodes, she did her job, and then, like Eric, she walked.
See you at midnight.
In your dream.
Now hold on there.
Karen's acting credits after the show go almost completely silent. She built a life off camera, on her own terms, without the reunion specials and convention circuits that catch most former child actors eventually. She's 65 now, alive and proudly out of the spotlight. 2 of Mama's TV grandkids. Same year, same city, same disappearing act. Alan Kaiser, Bubba Higgins. Now, Bubba. If you were a teenage girl in 1986, you knew exactly who Alan Kayser was. Tight jeans, tighter smile. The kind of grin that got him onto the cover of every teen magazine in the Walmart checkout line.
Well, Sergeant, are we supposed to bring our own surfboards to Tahiti, or is the Army going to supply us with one?
Alan was born December 18, 1963 in Colorado. By the time he joined Mama's Family for the syndicated revival, he was already being groomed for movie stardom. Bubba was Animal House levels of trouble inside a CBS family sitcom.
I studied Carol Burnett so much, and Harvey. I wanted to bring those characters to life. I was playing their son, you know.
The troublemaking nephew, fresh out of reform school, one bad decision away from another. He was supposed to be the next big thing.
And Dorothy looked at the asparagus and she took one piece of asparagus out and it went, "Ooh."
And then he wasn't. The Hollywood breakout never quite landed. Alan kept working through the late 80s and into the 90s. Bit parts, supporting roles, paychecks that pay rent but don't build mansions. By the 2000s, he'd quietly step back from the chase entirely. He shows up at Mama's Family conventions now, signs autographs, tells the stories. He's 62, alive, and at peace with the version of fame he actually got, which is more than most former teen idols can say. Brent Spiner, Billy Bob Conroy, now. Remember at the top of this video when I said one face on Mama's couch would later become one of the most famous androids in science fiction history? This is him. Brent Spiner was born February 2nd, 1949 in Houston, Texas.
How did she die? She passed away in her sleep.
She was just sleeping peacefully?
Yes, on the railroad track.
By the time Mama's Family hired him to play the recurring character Billy Bob Conroy in 1986, he was 37 years old and going nowhere fast. He'd been grinding in Hollywood for a decade, off-Broadway, soap operas, guest spots. The kind of character actor casting directors knew by face but couldn't quite name. You know how that story usually ends. 40 hits, the calls slow down, the actor goes home.
The longer the show went on, the more I seemed to be recognized, and I always feel if I can stay out of profile, I won't be recognized at all.
Brent Spiner did the opposite. 1 year after he started showing up at the Harper household, he booked the audition that changed everything. Star Trek: The Next Generation. The role of Lieutenant Commander Data, the gentle, curious android trying to understand what it means to be human.
I'm an android. Lieutenant Commander Data.
From you, Data, you are fully functional, aren't you?
7 seasons, 4 feature films, a global fan base that has not let go of him in nearly 40 years. Think about that for a second. He went from being the goofy oddball on Mama's couch to being one of the most beloved characters in science fiction history in less than 12 months. He's 77 in 2026, still doing the convention circuit, still acting, still answering questions about Data in every interview he gives. And the Mama's Family episodes? Mostly forgotten by everyone except the people who were really paying attention. Harvey Korman, Alistair Quince. While Brent Spiner was about to disappear into Data's makeup, another comedy giant was already at the Mama's Family table, and he wasn't waiting on stardom. He'd had it for 20 years. Harvey Korman was born February 15, 1927 in Chicago. The Korman family was working class, the city was rough, and young Harvey grew up doing exactly what tall, awkward kids from rough neighborhoods do, making people laugh before anybody could decide what else to do with him. By 1967, he was on the Carol Burnett Show, where he spent 11 seasons being the best straight man in the history of American sketch comedy. He played dukes and dentists and waiters and bumbling executives, and he played them all perfectly, until the moment Tim Conway walked into the scene. Then Harvey Korman, one of the most disciplined comic actors of his generation, became completely incapable of holding it together. He laughed, he broke character, he cried laughing on national television every Saturday night for a decade. When Carol Burnett brought him into the Mama's Family universe as Alistair Quince, the prim and ridiculous host of the show within a show, it was a love letter. Carol giving Harvey one more stage to be Harvey. 2 marriages, 4 children, decades of work. Blazing Saddles, High Anxiety, 1,000 other roles. He kept performing well into his 70s. Harvey Korman died May 29, 2008 at age 81 from complications of an aortic aneurysm. The greatest straight man in television history broke our hearts the same way he used to break our ribs, by leaving us right when we wanted him to stay. Some legends arrived already famous. Others got built one quiet episode at a time. Beverly Archer, Iola Boylan Harvey Korman, walked onto Mama's Family already a legend. Beverly Archer walked on as just another working actress and walked off as the emotional spine of the whole show. Beverly was born July 19, 1948 in Oak Park, Illinois, the same town that gave us Ernest Hemingway and, as we'll get to in a few minutes, one of the most beloved actresses in television history. Beverly had been working sitcom guest spots for years, the woman casting directors hired when they needed someone who could make sad and funny live inside the same line. When she joined Mama's Family as Iola Boylan, the lonely neighbor who all but moved into the Harper kitchen, something clicked. She and Vicki Lawrence had a chemistry the writers couldn't help but lean into. By the show's final seasons, Iola wasn't a side character anymore. She was the heart of the whole series. After Mama's Family ended in 1990, Beverly kept working steadily. Major Dad, voice gigs, the kind of grown-up character career most people only dream of. She retired in the early 2000s, walked away clean. She's 77, alive, and proudly out of the spotlight. The lonely neighbor turned out to be the heart of the show. Now, before we move on, here's the strangest part of this entire story. The cast member audiences barely noticed in 1986 would eventually become bigger than the entire show itself. You've already met one of them. There's another one coming. Keep watching. Anne Haney, Alberta Meacham. Some of these names you know from Mama's Family. Some of them you know from 100 other places and never realized. Anne Haney was born March 4, 1934 in Memphis, Tennessee. She came to Hollywood late, in her 40s, and instead of fame, she found something better. Steady work. The kind that fills 40 years of credits without ever turning your face into a tabloid. Mama's Family hired her to play Alberta Meacham, the Reverend's wife. But you might remember her from Mrs. Doubtfire, where she played the court worker who has the world's most patient phone call with Robin Williams. Or from Liar Liar. Or from a dozen other films where she was the woman who held a scene together without ever needing to be the center of it. Anne Haney died May 26, 2001 from heart failure. She was 67. The character actress nobody knew by name, but everybody knew by face. Alice Ghostley, Bernice. Not every cast member's exit was that quiet. Alice Ghostley was born August 14, 1923 in Eve, Missouri. By the time she joined Mama's Family, she was already a Broadway legend, a Tony winner, and the woman who'd played Esmeralda on Bewitched, the nervous, fluttery witch who appeared and disappeared in clouds of confusion. Alice's specialty was eccentric, twitchy, the character who couldn't quite finish her own sentences. Nobody did it better. Nobody ever has. She brought that same energy to Mama's Family as Bernice, the kind of friend you didn't invite over unless you were ready to lose an afternoon. The cast adored her, the audience adored her, and behind it all, behind every nervous laugh and bewildered look, Alice was already starting to fight a battle she would not win. Years of declining health, a series of strokes, colon cancer, the kind of long, slow goodbye Hollywood usually keeps very, very quiet. Alice Ghostley died September 21, 2007 at the age of 84. The sweetest oddball on television spent her last decade losing pieces of herself the cameras never got to see. Dick Van Patten, Reverend Lloyd Meacham. If you grew up in the late 70s, you didn't have a TV dad. You had Dick Van Patten. He was born December 9, 1928 in Queens, New York. He was on Broadway as a child actor. He was on television before half of America even owned a television. And then in 1977, he became Tom Bradford on 8 is Enough, the wide-faced, ever-patient widower raising 8 kids on a newspaper columnist's salary. And a generation of American men learned what a TV dad was supposed to look like by watching him do it every Wednesday night. When Mama's Family brought him in to play Reverend Lloyd Meacham, it was a wink. Of course Dick Van Patten was the Reverend. The man had been playing decency on television for 40 years. Casting him was almost cheating. He married Pat Poole. They had 3 sons. He stayed married to her until the day he died. Dick Van Patten passed away June 23, 2015 from complications of diabetes. He was 86. The man who taught a generation what a father looks like spent his entire real life being one too. Imogene Coca, Gertrude Gert Crowley. Now, we have to talk about somebody who was already a legend before half the cast of Mama's Family was even born. Imogene Coca was born November 18, 1908 in Philadelphia. She was on the vaudeville stage at age 11. By 1950, she was co-starring with Sid Caesar on Your Show of Shows, live weekly 90 minutes of network television comedy that the entire country watched at the same time. She wasn't just one of the funniest women on TV. She was one of the people who invented what funny on TV even meant. By the time Mama's Family hired her in 1983 to play Gert Crowley, Mama's sister, Imogene was 75 years old. The younger cast treated her like royalty, because that's what she was. But here's the part of the story nobody talks about. Imogene spent the last years of her life slowly losing herself to Alzheimer's disease. The woman who had made an entire country laugh in real time, every Saturday night, live, no second takes, eventually could not reliably remember her own brilliant career. Imogene Coca died June 2, 2001 at the age of 92. The founding mother of TV comedy lived just long enough to be rediscovered by new generations, and just barely long enough to enjoy it. Ken Berry, Vinton Harper. Remember the second promise I made at the top of this video? The TV father who buried his own children and never let America see his tears? This is him. Ken Berry was born November 3, 1933 in Moline, Illinois. He could dance, really dance, the kind of natural grace that made you look twice when he walked across a room. He came up through the Army's entertainment circuit, made his way to Hollywood, and built one of the most reliable careers in network television. F Troop, Mayberry RFD, The Andy Griffith Show. He was the guy you brought in when you needed warmth on camera, and Ken Berry never, ever had to fake it. When Mama's Family hired him to play Vinton Harper, Mama's chronically henpecked, perpetually well-meaning son, it was perfect casting. Ken brought a softness to Vint that the writing alone could not have created. He was the heart of that household. Everybody who worked with him said the same thing. The kindest man on a set full of comedians. And while he was making America laugh, Ken Berry was quietly losing his children. He and his first wife, the actress Jackie Joseph, had adopted 2 kids. Their son was diagnosed with brain cancer. Ken buried him. He buried other children too over the course of his life. He almost never spoke about it publicly. He took his pain home, closed the door, and went back to work the next day with the same kind face he'd had the day before. Ken Berry died December 1, 2018, from heart-related complications. He was 85. America's gentlest sitcom dad spent his whole life carrying a grief most fathers will never understand, and he never let us see it, not once. Rue McClanahan, Fran Crowley. Now, let's talk about the cast member who walked away from this show at exactly the wrong moment. Or maybe exactly the right one. Rue McClanahan was born February 21, 1934 in Heelton, Oklahoma. She came out of Tulsa, then New York, then off-Broadway, then television. She'd already done Maude with B. Arthur. She'd already done the original NBC run of Mama's Family as Aunt Fran Crowley, Mama's spinster sister, the prim, fussy judgment machine who shared the Harper house and silently hated every minute of it. Then in 1985, NBC canceled Mama's Family. The cast scattered. Rue took a chance on a brand new pilot, a show about 4 older women living together in Miami, written by people most of Hollywood had never heard of. The show was The Golden Girls, and Rue McClanahan was about to become Blanche Devereaux. Here's the part that makes longtime Mama's Family fans wince. In 1986, the year after Rue moved on, Mama's Family came back as a syndicated juggernaut. 4 more seasons, 20+ years of syndication royalties. Some cast members made a small fortune on those checks. Rue, by leaving early, missed all of that long-term Mama money entirely. she didn't miss anything else. The Golden Girls made her a household name on a level Mama's Family never could have. 4 Emmy nominations, a win, a friendship with Betty White and B. Arthur that defined the rest of her career. She was married 6 times. Yes, 6. She wrote about every single one in her memoir, and she did not pull punches. Rue McClanahan died June 3, 2010 at age 76 after a stroke. She left Mama's house in Raytown for a lanai in Miami and walked directly into television immortality. It was the right move. She knew it. She never looked back once. Betty White, Ellen Harper Jackson. And speaking of the Golden Girls, let's talk about the cast member I promised you at the very beginning of this video, the one who died alone on New Year's Eve at the age of 99. Betty White was born January 17, 1922 in Oak Park, Illinois. She was on radio in the 1930s. She was on television in 1949. Yes, 1949, when most American families didn't even own a set yet. She hosted, she produced, she acted. By the time most actors are starting their careers, Betty White already had a 30-year career behind her. When Mama's Family hired her in 1983 to play Ellen Harper Jackson, Mama's snobby, social-climbing daughter who looked down on her own family, she was 61 years old and already a Hollywood institution. The role was small. The role was perfect. Betty could play stuck up the way nobody else could, with just enough warmth underneath that you somehow still rooted for her. Then the Golden Girls happened. Betty left Mama's Family the same way Rue McClanahan did, for the chance of a lifetime. Rose Nyland, 7 seasons of comedy gold. And after that ended, Betty White didn't slow down. She got faster. She got bigger. Her last 20 years on this planet were the most famous of her entire career. In 1981, before Mama's Family even started, she had lost her husband, Alan Ludden, to cancer. She never remarried. She always said he was the love of her life and that there was nobody else. On December 31st, 2021, 17 days before her 100th birthday, Betty White passed away peacefully in her home in Los Angeles. She had outlived almost everyone she had ever worked with. There was no husband at the bedside. There were no children. She'd never had any. Just a quiet house in California on New Year's Eve while the rest of the country was waiting for the ball to drop. She was 99 years old. The woman Hollywood once told was too old for television became, in the end, the most beloved actress in America. And she did it almost entirely after most people her age were already gone. Carol Burnett, Eunice Higgins. None of this, Betty's last Golden Girls episode, Vicki Lawrence's career, Mama's Family itself, any of it, happens without Carol Burnett. Carol was born April 26, 1933 in San Antonio, Texas, raised mostly in Hollywood by a grandmother who worked as an apartment manager. She did not come from money. She did not come from connections. She built her entire career out of pure, sweaty, unteachable talent. The Carol Burnett Show ran from 1967 to 1978, 11 seasons, 25 Emmy Awards. And buried inside that show, in some of its darkest and best sketches, was a recurring character called Eunice Higgins, the brittle, frustrated, perpetually disappointed Southern daughter of a hateful mother. Eunice was tragic comedy. She made audiences laugh and then sit very quietly afterward because they recognized somebody from their own life in her. Eunice, and her mother, played by Vicki Lawrence, became the family sketches that eventually became Mama's Family. But here's the part Carol almost never talks about. When the syndicated version of Mama's Family started reshaping the characters into something broader, lighter, more cartoonish, Carol Burnett quietly stepped back. She'd done what she came to do. She let other people run with it. She lost her daughter Carrie Hamilton to cancer in 2002. She still works, she still performs, she still occasionally appears as Eunice for fans who remember what the character used to be. Carol Burnett is 92 in 2026, alive, a national treasure. She built the entire Harper universe, and she has always known when to step out of the room and let it run without her. Vicki Lawrence, Thelma, Mama, Crowley Harper. Which brings us finally to Mama herself. Vicki Lawrence was born Vicki Ann Axelrad on March 26, 1949 in Inglewood, California. She wasn't an actress. She wasn't trained. She was a high school girl who looked weirdly, eerily like Carol Burnett, and who in 1967 wrote Carol a fan letter mentioning the resemblance. Carol read it. Carol invited her to audition. Carol hired her at 18 years old with no real acting experience to play her kid sister on the brand new Carol Burnett show. It was supposed to be a learning experience for the kid. She stayed for 11 seasons. By the time the family sketches started in the early 70s, Vicki, barely in her 20s, was playing Carol's elderly, gray-haired, sharp-tongued mother. Makeup so heavy and aging so dramatic that the audience genuinely could not tell how old she was in real life. Mama was supposed to be a character. Vicki Lawrence made her a person. Then in 1983, NBC built an entire show around her, Mama's Family. Vicki was 34 years old, playing a woman in her 70s 6 days a week under hours of latex and gray wig and prosthetics that left her exhausted by every wrap. The original run got canceled in 1984. Most actresses would have moved on. Vicki Lawrence brought Mama back in 1986 for syndication. 4 more years, hundreds of episodes. A character so beloved that today, 4 decades later, Vicki still tours stage shows as Mama and packs theaters across the country. She married Al Schultz in 1974. They've been married more than 50 years. 2 children. A quiet life off camera that has almost nothing in common with the chaos of the Harper house. She's quietly battled a chronic skin condition for years. She's open about it now. She lives with it the same way she lives with everything else, with a kind of plain-spoken Midwestern grit that Mama herself would have respected. Vicki Lawrence is 77 in 2026, alive, working. The 18-year-old fan letter kid who got hired because she looked like Carol Burnett built one of the most beloved characters in the history of American sitcoms. And she's still wearing the gray wig. That's the cast of Mama's Family. Some still here, some long gone. One died alone on New Year's Eve at 99. One quietly buried his own children and never let us in. One walked away from a fortune in syndication checks and never regretted it for a second. And one became one of the most famous androids in science fiction history. Which one hit you the hardest? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.